Welcome back to another episode of our Technology Grade 8 Term 2 work. This is video number 2 or lesson number 2 on the impact of technology. Previously we talked about the positive impact of technology. We looked at the use of raw materials, natural raw materials, and we say these are biodegradable and these are good for the environment. They are biodegradable because they break down. They are capable of breaking down in the environment. Okay, so today let's look at plastic shopping bags. Let's look at plastic shopping bags. And you see, plastic long ago used to, believe it or not, used to be made by using certain saps from trees and even from the horns of animals in some cases. But today we find that plastic is made from oil. Now oil is a non-renewable resource. Oil is a non-renewable resource. What do we mean when we say oil is non-renewable? What that basically means is that once we use oil, we can no longer reuse it again. Okay, let me repeat. Non-renewable means we can no longer use that resource once it's used. Okay, so it can be easily molded through the use of what? Of heat. Plastic can be easily molded through the use of heat. So here we see people carrying their plastics after having done their groceries. And you will find that most industries are now using plastic as a norm because plastics, one, are easy to manufacture, they are cheap, they are readily available, okay, and easy to use. So now, there is one problem, however. Plastics affect the environment. So when materials like plastic are not disposed properly, they end up affecting the environment. Some of these plastics get thrown out, they get thrown away, they block the drainage systems, they end up washed up in the rivers, end up in the oceans, and end up affecting marine life. And because plastic is not biodegradable, most of the plastics that you see out there is not biodegradable. What does that mean? It means that plastic takes a longer time to break down. Okay, can take up to 500 years before it breaks down. So we can try using a thicker plastic bag. Okay, this would be able to reduce or be able to mitigate the harmful impact of plastic on the environment, because you see, we can reuse this thicker plastic bag, or it can be recycled. So thin plastic bags, you will find, like here in South Africa, were actually banned. So on 9 May 2003, the South African government issued a ban on the manufacturing and use of thin plastic shopping bags because they only used once. Okay, you cannot reuse them again. You cannot repurpose them again. Okay, so let's watch this video that shows how plastic damage the environment.
Paper or plastic? A simple choice that has important environmental consequences. It can be hard to know for sure which one has a smaller impact. And because plastic bags are such a presence in everyday life, it can be easy to overlook the damage they cause. Today, we are going to look at the environmental impact of plastic bags as well as the alternatives in order to understand what kind of choices we have as consumers in an environmentally unethical system. The first plastic, Bakelite, was originally invented in 1907, but it wasn't until the 1960s that plastics, specifically polyethylene, became cheap and efficient to make.
Just one word.
Yes, sir.
Are you listening?
Yes, I am.
Plastics.
Soon after the 1960s, plastic bags exploded in popularity because it was marketed and made as a single-use product. Their cheap manufacturing costs allowed them to become the default choice at supermarket checkout counters. But the problem is, the cheap price doesn't account for the environmental costs of using plastic bags. According to a study conducted by the English Environment Agency, resource extraction and raw material production account for 60% of the environmental footprint of plastic bags. In other words, 60% of the bag's environmental impact happens before we even put our groceries in them. And although post-use impact accounts for less than half of a bag's total environmental impact, it is also the part of the bag's life that consumers can most easily control. It's estimated that the US alone throws away 100 billion plastic bags annually, only a fraction of which gets recycled. In general, most of these bags make their way into waterways and float along ocean currents until they make it to the 5 oceanic gyres that are created by circular currents. And these plastic bags could take well over 500 years to degrade. The bags don't maintain their original shape, however. Instead, they slowly break down via sun, water, and microbial erosion into smaller bits called microplastics, which can be fatal to marine life. Considering the adverse effects of plastic bags, it would make sense then to buy a cloth reusable bag or opt for the paper bag, right? Well, the answer isn't so simple. In the same study by the English Environment Agency, they found that the real environmental cost of a bag, whether plastic, paper, or cloth, is heavily rooted in the production side of the product. Plastic actually has the smallest environmental impact out of those 3 materials. So, in order for the quote-unquote longer life bags to have a smaller environmental impact, they need to be used multiple times. For paper, the study claims that it needs to be used 3 times in order to equate a single use of a plastic bag. And for cloth, that number skyrockets to 131 uses. This definitely shouldn't be taken to mean that single-use plastic bags are the best option. When possible, we should avoid using them. But for those of us who already have a drawer full of plastic bags in our home, reusing is key for mitigating the negative effects of that plastic. There is no need to go out and buy a brand new reusable tote if you already have usable plastic bags at home. Buying new reusable bags every time you go out to the store just perpetuates the problem. Reducing the use of plastic bags has rightfully been a focus of environmental initiatives. But if we zoom out, they are a small part in a much larger environmental picture. For example, it takes 40 times more energy to make a hamburger than it does to make a plastic bag. And even more frustrating, only 100 companies are responsible for 71% of all carbon emissions since 1988. Our choices as consumers are important, but we also face imperfect options based on production side decisions. So reducing your plastic bags shouldn't be viewed as your sole contribution to climate change mitigation. It's a small alteration that needs to go hand in hand with other actions, like re-examining how much food you're buying from that very same grocery store so you don't end up throwing away 5 pounds of vegetables at the end of the week. In short, the bag you choose matters, but not as much as how it came to be there, what you put in it, and how you use it.
So you'll find that from the video, plastic bags are more of for what people choose, because you will find that comparing them to other materials like paper or cloth bags, you'll find that in terms of producing them, they use less energy, they use less resources, and they have a lesser impact compared to paper bags or cloth bags. Okay, so you find that cost or benefit assessment that we have just done, that was done in this video. That's why you find more companies favor the use of plastic bags, because they can be mass produced. That is, they can be used at a larger scale. Therefore, they also reduce the cost, the labor, and energy required. You found that the energy required to make one hamburger, is more than the energy that you would require to make a plastic bag. So it's those kind of scenarios that end up being the determining factor of which technologies to use and how what kind of an impact this has on the environment. Another important factor to note also is that 71% of the majority of the plastic bags or that are mass produced or impact on the environment is coming from 100 companies. And from that list, you saw the companies that were in the top 20 or so. So let's just look at a couple of terminologies. So reusing is when you use synthetic materials over and over again. That's where we talked about making the use of thicker plastic bags, which you can reuse and reuse again. And then reducing is when you buy fewer things, thereby limiting the consumption of Of synthetic materials. And then recycling is making of new products from used or waste products. And then we have microplastics, which are tiny little pieces broken down, and these are pieces of plastic. Okay? And from that case study video that we just looked at, I am gonna post some questions. You can find them on the website etutoracademy.co.za, or you can find them on our Facebook page, and you can also find them in your workbook, that is from page 65 to page 67. There is also a case study that you can do there, that is in the textbook. If you're unable to access the website. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you in the next lesson.